today is going to be an interview with Paul Nadeau. Paul is a passionate keynote and motivational speaker on topics like business and life negotiations, conflict resolution, and mental health. He is the author of the book, Take Control of Your Life. Let me get that in the shot. Take Control of Your Life. This is a book that I just read. I actually got it from a good friend of mine, which I believe you gave to him. I'm not entirely sure how it got to him, but I think he said that he met you and you gave it to him. So what we're doing now is we're taking this book. Each person is going to be reading it. We're going to be writing our own message inside it. We're going to be passing it around. So thank you for your contribution. And it was I loved this book because it was so timely. It was perfect for what we're experiencing right now. Essentially, we can get into our own heads, and there could be a lot of holding ourselves to really high standards, and there could be a lot of negative self-talk. And what I got from this book, some of the lessons that I got from this book, is that we really need to be careful on how we speak to ourselves, because it'll result in our mood and it'll result in our actions and ultimately in how we live our life. And another beautiful thing that I took away from this book is that just because your path isn't necessarily the same as someone else to success, or what people tell you it needs to be, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong path. And I'm going to ask you, Paul, about that a little bit later on.
Sure.
How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it, and thanks for reaching out and connecting. I love that you did that. I love that you sent me a message, and that's, we need to stay connected, and we need to meet new people, and this is just wonderful being here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted to start off with today is so the biggest thing that I got from the first two chapters is about hostage negotiation. So you mentioned that you spent some time in the police force and as a hostage negotiator. And what was cool is that you took real life hostage situations and you turned it to how we could ourselves keep ourselves hostage with kind of the things that go through our minds. So the question I have here is, use examples of people being kept hostage and relate it to people keeping themselves hostage because of the interior dialogue they create in their minds. What are some reasons why people create negative dialogues in their minds that ultimately paralyze or hostage them, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it comes down to social and upbringing. Really, it comes down to a couple of factors. We are exposed to so much media and people saying that we have to be one way, we have to be this way. Even in our upbringing, we're told we're expected to be a certain way. When we're not that way, sometimes we are reprimanded for not being somebody's ideal individual. So from a very young age, you can get some mixed messages about your worth. And, suddenly the media will post something saying, this is the ideal individual that you need to be. You need to have this level of success. You need to have this body. You need to have that body. So we are totally, exposed to all these messages. And internally, we begin to imagine having to live up to somebody else's expectations. So it's very easy for us to be hurt by what people say, even if we don't know them. And some people are easily hurt by other people's words and messages. So one of the ways that we take ourselves hostage is we begin to believe the lies sometimes, or the hurtful words, that we're exposed to. If we allow those things to seep into our brains and start that negative dialogue loop, hey, are they right? Are they right? Then what happens if we allow garbage in is that we begin to believe the garbage, and garbage comes out of us. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes we take ourselves hostage because you are your best friend or your worst enemy. And you should be your best friend, but sometimes we are our worst enemy. Who can hurt us the most? Not anybody else out there. It's us. We are the ones who can hurt ourselves or elevate ourselves the most in life. And so a long way to answer that short question. And let me just get rid of this little message that came up. yeah, we take ourselves hostage, and by listening to the negative messages that we're getting, by putting too much expectations on us, or by being something that we're not,
Yeah.
and unfortunately that hurts.
I really appreciate that. And one of the things that thank you for answering that. One of the things that you talked about in the book is awareness. And some of the things that people have reached out to me about is that sometimes people don't realize how harsh or how negative the things that they're saying to themselves are in their heads until they really kind of take a second and try to be present to it. What kind of advice do you have to people that aren't really realizing how negatively they're speaking to themselves?
Well, I think one of the, and I mentioned this in my book, is that we have to take some time, once every couple of weeks, to sit down and really analyze ourselves and our lives. We have to do a mental check on how things are going. So, for example, if you have a relationship that's not going well, you have to sit back and you have to think about why that relationship is not going well. Be blatantly honest with yourself. Maybe you messed up. Maybe, you misbehaved, whatever it is. And if that relationship is important enough to you, then you have to jot down the steps that you'll take, to bring about the action that you want the results to get. So when you do a self-analysis, you begin to say, why am I not happy? What is it about, what have I been thinking? What is it that I can be doing differently that would elevate me to more happiness? You see, happiness is not something that is external. It's not because something is happening around us that we become happy. It's how we perceive, what is happening around us that creates that happiness. So happiness is relative to you. It's internal. We can switch it like that. We can be happy during these stressful times, and it's a matter of analyzing what is going right in your life, what is not going right in your life, and then not only coming up with ideas on how to change that, but take the necessary action to change that. It's almost, and I'm not going to say this is easy. No, it's like imagining a perfect strong body. You know that you need to go to the gym, or you need to work out at home. You need to do something in order to get that muscle, and in order to get that shape that is ideal in your mind. Just imagining it is not going to make it so. You
Mm,
have to pick up the weight. You have to do the exercising. You have to go for the walks, whatever it is. You need to consistently do that. And we need to consistently analyze ourselves to see, what it is that we believe. If you believe this negativity that you tell yourself right now, COVID-19, people are thinking, oh my God, it's never going to end. I'm so depressed. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I'm lost. I'm getting depressed. All these things. Well, you've got to change that negative dialogue, because the more you feed into it, the more it feeds into you. And if it feeds into you, it takes control, and it keeps you hostage. And there's only one person who ought to be in control of your life, and that's you.
I love that.
You ought to control yourself. Yeah.
And what I'm getting from this, Paul, is that we are not any external factors responsible for our own pain and our own happiness. I love the analogy you used about going to the gym, which is like, hey, you know that this is what you need to do, and if you want to get it, you need to go and do it. Now, the question that I have is, why do you think that people avoid that, taking some time and doing the analysis and looking at what it is that they can do in order to get them out of this funk? What keeps them from doing that?
I think awareness. You hit on that, just a few minutes ago by saying, awareness is something that is taken for granted. We will live our lives, and we're sort of conditioned. Like we're conditioned to go from point A to point B. We have routines that are familiar to us. We get up, we shower, we do whatever. Everybody's got their own routines. We neglect taking time to really look at ourselves. For example, in the morning, you wake up. and you may have set out the clothes that you're going to wear for the day. Like things have changed now. We probably got a t-shirt and a pair of whatever. But when you were
Sleeping
going out in the business
pajamas
world,
and spending time during the day pajamas. Different
there you
sets of
go.
pajamas.
That's it. I think most people are in their PJs these days, but we take more time sometimes getting our physical body ready than we do getting our mental state ready. There's two closets in our brain. On the one side of the closet are very dark emotions. There's sadness, hopelessness, fear, anxiety, depression. On the other side, there is a very bright, side to your closet, to your brain's closet, to your mind's closet, and that is hopefulness. That is love and joy and fearlessness. And every morning, and it may sound ridiculous, but why not say a couple of mantras? Like, hey, today's going to be a great day. Today, I'm going to achieve something. I have a goal for today. Yeah, you're in isolation. That one side of you is, hey, dude, you're in isolation. That other side is, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make something creative out of it. Then they start to argue. Who's going to win? That's entirely up to you. Are you, the wolf that is fed the most is going to be the one who's going to be the victor. So if we lead with depression, those depressing, thoughts, if that wolf takes over, man, we are in trouble. But we have strength. We have the ability to change, and it's only a 2 millimeter, switch. It's just, I gotta just turn down the volume on this guy. Hey, I'm not feeding you today. What I'm going to feed is I'm going to feed this positivity, because I need to get through this. Not only that, I will get through this. Change the way you say things. I hope. No. I will. You don't hope it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Whatever you say will manifest itself in so many different ways. So be aware of what you say. I'd like to. No. I will. So I'd like to. No, becomes I will. Those mantras in the morning become, I am worthy. This is temporary. I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to accomplish something. I am in control of me, and I am in control of my happiness. And today's going to be a good day. You take 3-4 minutes to do that, man, and it's worth gold.
I got so much from what you said there. Thank you, Paul, for sharing that. I think the first thing is that it's easy to focus on our physical because we can see it, we can touch it, it's there. Other people can see it too, but what's hidden is what's in our heads. And sometimes it's easier to neglect it or to not realize that you can work on it the same way that you can work on your body. So I really got that. Another one is I'm actually going to take away and start implementing is you started talking about feeding wolves, but the one thing that I guess I'm a very visual learner, is I'm going to wake up in the morning, and when I walk out of my room, the physical act of walking out of the door, I'm going to think about what you said about there's a door or a closet of hope, and there's a door and a closet where I may not want to enter. And I'm going to think of actually walking through the door that I want to enter today and actually making that conscious choice. Thank you for that. That's great.
I love it. And I'm going to just ask you to change one thing that you said. Yeah, I think you said, a closet I may go into. No, you're not going to go in there. You're going to make a conscious decision, my friend. You just to say, hey, there's 2 closets. That's dark. I'm not going in there, because if I go in there, I'm going to get sucked into that tunnel, and that wolf is going to tear me apart. This is the closet for me.
Got it. I will be going through that. I love that. You're right. Life is all built through language. I agree.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taking a different route.
Yeah.
Let's come back to language, because that's actually one of the final things I want to talk to you about. Taking a different route. So I was reading near the end of your book about you having to go and partner with someone that was a little bit more senior than you, and they didn't want to fly, and you had to drive all the way out to Quebec, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be painful. You didn't really have a great relationship, or there wasn't a lot of conversation with this. Go pick up this criminal, and you ended up being able to you ended up being successful in being able to apprehend this criminal. Tell me because I could imagine you writing this chapter and having an aha moment when you kind of got that confession from that criminal in the car, and being like, wow, I Tell us about that. Tell us about that learning that you got from taking a different route.
Yeah. Okay. The story was interesting. I was working as a detective in Durham region, which is just outside of Toronto, Ontario. And I was working on an armed robbery. And this fella had committed 5 armed robberies. But as luck would have it, on one of his armed robberies, he fled and he hid underneath a boat. And didn't he hide underneath a boat and drop his wallet with his ID? It was beautiful, you know. I mean, you go, you just start knocking on doors, you're getting descriptions, and then somebody says, "Well, you know, he ran over there and he hid underneath the boat." And so you go and well, okay, well, he hid it underneath the boat. Maybe he dropped something. Oh, geez, did he ever drop something? Hey, look what I got! I got his identification. Well, Buddy flees and he goes to Quebec. So I put out a warrant, you know, like a Canada-wide warrant for 5 armed robberies. And you know, a few days later, the Quebec police call me up and say, "Hey, we've got your prisoner. You know, we got him. He was trying to escape. You come, you know, pick him up." And I said, "Yeah, okay, great." So I go to my partner, and he and I were not getting along. He was a bitter guy, and you know, and I did most of the work myself. He was pretty lazy. Anyways, I said, "Listen, you know, we should get a couple of tickets, you know, like, and get him a ticket. We'll fly out to Quebec." And he says, "No, no, no, I'm not flying." I said, "What do you mean you're not flying? Like it's a 13-hour drive. You know, he says it's a 13-hour drive. It's a 2-hour flight. Come on." He says, "No, no, no." He says, we're driving." And I said, "Oh gosh." And he says, "And I'm driving." And I said, "Well, I won't be able to drive?" "No." "Oh, this was terrible. This was terrible." So anyways, we're going up and you know, making a little bit of conversation, but he was a very quiet kind of guy. He just turned on his country and western music, and at the time I didn't like it. Now I have more of an appreciation for it. But you know, so we hardly said a word up there. It was a long 13 hours. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, about the case, and you know, what needs to happen is, it would be ideal if he uh, confessed, you know, to the crimes, you know, like, so the interview, the interrogation I would have with him, I'm trying to imagine what that would be like. So we go and we pick him up, and the guy gets into young guy, probably, you know, 28, 29 years old. He gets in to the back seat, and he's handcuffed. And now we have a 13-hour drive ahead of us. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be really interesting. So I give him his rights to counsel, you know, like, listen, you don't have to say anything. Whatever you do say could be used against you in a court, you know, that kind of thing. You don't have to say a word. I'm not even going to ask you about it. So anyways, we start chatting, you know, at least he was a conversationalist. And he says, "Hey, you wouldn't believe it." I said, "What?" He says, "Those Quebec police." I said, "What about them?" "They're crazy." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well," he says, "you know, I see the cruiser, and you know, I'm near the bushes and some trees, you know, like it's a conservation area. So I take off into the conservation area. 2 minutes later, there's a helicopter above, and there's a guy, a sniper, who's taking shots at me. There's bullets, you know, flying by." And he says, "I couldn't believe it." You know, anyways, he started telling me this. We were laughing, and you know, he started, you know, saying some jokes and talking about himself, and we were just, you know, chatting back and forth. And it's funny, and you know this as a business person. People will open up to you, and they will deal with you when 3 things happen: when they know you, like you, and trust you. And when you have those 3 elements, it's amazing what you can achieve. Just because this guy was a criminal didn't mean that I had to treat him any differently than I would treat anybody else. In fact, I like treating people the way that I like to be treated. So we were having this great conversation. We dropped, you know, we stopped by a coffee place, and I said, "Hey, you want a coffee?" "Sure does." And anyways, we go up to the little kiosk, you know, the drive-through. He's asking the girl, you know, who's serving the coffee, out for a date. He shows her his handcuffs. He says, "Hey, this is only temporary." He says, "I'll be out," you know. He says, "You know, but how about giving me your number?" The guy was just a pleasant kind of guy. So, and my partner was not enjoying this at all. Anyways, we go, and at one point he says, "Paul, are you not going to ask me about the robberies?" I said, "Well," I said, "Yeah, I'll probably ask you at some point." He says, "You want to know about them?" I said, "Sure. You want to tell me?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I did all 5 of them. That's me." He says, "But you missed 2." I did 2 more. So he goes and he tells me the 2 more that he's done. This confession was a legally obtained, no, no force, no inducements, nothing. We were having conversation. He told me exactly what I wanted to hear. The next day, after this whole episode, he went in and he pled guilty at his bail hearing, and he got sentenced. What I learned from that, and I learned a lot. Number one, that unpleasant situation that I had imagined in my mind actually turned out to be quite amazing, because on the way back from that, it was an experience of connecting with a criminal who opened up to me and confessed everything. Chatting with him the way that I'm chatting with you made such a difference, so the way that we treat people makes such a significant difference in our lives and in theirs. And using that same principle, we have to treat ourselves with dignity and respect as well. We don't do that when we have that negative self-chatter going on. It's as though we hate the individual, whose body we have, and we're saying, you're not worthy enough, you're not good enough, you're not this. So if I'm going to talk, nicely to you, why don't I talk nicely to me? Why don't I start saying, hey, you know what, you're a pretty cool dude, hey, you goof up every once in a while, but we are all human, and we're imperfect people living in an imperfect world, and we're going to mess up, but we need to really step back and allow ourselves to be human, and to just move forward no matter what it is that's keeping us back. Right now, it's COVID-19. COVID-19 has got us in this cage. But how we decide to spend the time in the cage is entirely up to us. When I think about Nelson Mandela, who served 27 years in confinement, no books, no telephone, no video, no nothing. He made it. I'm certain that we can make it. The few months that we need to take to get this under control, we have a choice on how we spend it. We can spend it miserably, and people will, regrettably, some people will get out into the world, and they will be 20 or 30 pounds heavier, and they will be more depressed, and it's almost like we're coming out of a cave and looking at each other and saying, I haven't seen, oh my God, what do I say about your weight? You look amazing, it's entirely up to us, but more important, I can't say more importantly, just as importantly, as our physical condition is our mental condition. And we need to service that just as much as we need to exercise right now. We need to remain positive. That mental wellness, that mental fitness is up to us, largely up to us. And we can't do it alone sometimes, talking to a friend, talking to somebody who's willing to listen, there are several days in the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, cry day. Have your cry day. It's okay. It's okay to have one day where you go, life sucks, but don't spend too much time on that. Have your little cry, pick yourself up. Remember that you are stronger than your circumstances. I love the Rocky movies. I used to watch the Rocky movies ever since they came out. I still do. And the one thing that I learned from Rocky, it doesn't matter how many times you're knocked down, Matt, what matters is that you get back up. And that's a lesson that stayed with me since the very first Rocky movie came out. I thought, life is going to kick us where it hurts. But if we choose to allow ourselves to remain on the floor after the kick, then we lose. And I don't want to lose.
Love that. Love it. Thank you, Paul. That was fantastic. And the follow-up question I was going to have is what's a few tips that you would leave people, but you kind of just went into it, which is connect with people. If you kind of fall, the best thing that you get right back up and start tackling your day. So, and also the third one, which is have a cry. I think, especially, I don't want to make it kind of male or female, but typically, males struggle with showing emotion. And I had a moment with my sibling of mine where she was like, "Oh, I need to cry." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, sometimes I just need to sit and cry." And I was like, "Man, I've never really tried that before." And the only time that I've ever gotten emotional, the first feeling is suck it up, don't show emotion. But I definitely agree that if you kind of take some time to just let it all spill out, you'll actually come out like someone that's reversed.
It's okay, and yes, we are men, and sadly, we were brought up to think, suck it up. Hey, you're a boy, you're a man. Take it like a man. All these messages that are going into our young boys. Don't cry, don't show emotion. Be this way, be that way. That's harmful because crying is in a way it is a release. It is a
Yeah.
release of that inner anxiety that needs to come out. Now, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me that it's okay to cry all the time. It is whenever you need to, but let's have our cry, and then let's remind ourselves that whatever we're going through is temporary. So to answer a couple of your questions as far as what we can do now, I think one
Mm-hmm.
of the first things, I really encourage people to read my book. And the reason, yes, I wrote that book. I never intended to write that book. But when I look at what I wrote and how it applies to today's world of even people, like that I always thought, were really strong, are posting on social media how they're having breakdowns, and these are people that I didn't expect. But that's okay, because we're all human. We're going to experience something unlike anything that we've ever experienced before. It's okay, to feel, in a way that you're sad, but don't dwell on that. Dwell on the positive things. So one thing, I encourage people to read the book. Second thing, start posting, some positive, sticky notes. Hey, be aware today. Be grateful today. Take 5 minutes out today to remind yourself of what you're grateful for. But not only, hey, I'm grateful to have a roof over my house, or sorry, over my head, which I am. Grateful for my family, my daughters, my brothers, my sisters. I'm grateful for that. Grateful that I'm healthy. Yeah. What are you grateful for the last the last 5 minutes? Well, right now I'm grateful that I'm talking with you. I really am. This is a wonderful experience, so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I watched this really cool, a YouTube video. I'm grateful for that. We have to start, maybe posting little notes to remind ourselves to be aware and to take action, and to remind ourselves that we're greater than our circumstances. Stay fit. Have a routine. Don't sleep in until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, and then eat all day, and then go to bed and expect that you're going to be well, because all that is going to catch up with you at some point. Have a routine. Wake up in the morning at a particular time. And be creative. I've written a movie script. And I'm writing another book, and I'm designing a website for encouraging and inspiring people. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I do next? It's like, oh gosh, my day has gone by just like that, as opposed to dreading every minute. It's like, no, I talk a lot, and I apologize, but
No,
so many
please.
people, well, so many people have come to me, and they said, hey, you've got a published book. And I said, yeah. And they said, I've always wanted to write a book, or I've got a book in me. And I sit there and I go, oh, yeah, okay. So tell me a little bit about that. And, one of the very first questions I ask is, did you start writing it? It's one thing to have a desire. It's one thing to have that beach body. It's one thing to have this, or it's one thing to take control of your mental wellness. But unless you do something, unless you take some action, your wannabes will remain wannabes. And at the end of this world, when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to be visited by the ghosts of missed opportunities who say, hey, Paul, you should have written that screenplay. Hey, Paul, you should have written that book. You should have asked that girl out. Hey, Paul, you should have gone for what you wanted in life. Hey, I don't want to be visited by those guys. those guys are going to put me down right before I die. I don't want them. What I want the ghosts of, yeah, you did it, man. I want these guys to come up and say, hey, give me 5. That was amazing. You wrote a book, you did that, you did your TED talk, you did this, you did that. I want those guys, to say, what a life, what a ride that was. And that doesn't have to change just because we are experiencing COVID-19. We are greater than these circumstances. We will get out of these circumstances. Let's remind ourselves of that every day. If it becomes a pattern to say, this is only temporary, this pain is only temporary. Tomorrow, the sun is going to come out tomorrow. After every storm, there is always, the brilliance of a new day, new sunshine, all that kind of stuff.
I love that. One of the things that, so actually, before we get into the next question, I'm actually reading a book myself right now. And a lot of things that you're talking about, it's like, oh yeah, that would be good in this chapter, and that would be good in this chapter. Now, it isn't really a book similar to yours. It's kind of just a little ebook to get me started. And yes, I have started it. I'd say I'm
good.
About 25% of the way through. 2 things. One is, I have a thought on this, but what are some of the things that you believe keep people from starting? Like, it's one thing to go to someone and say, hey, go, do, like, have you started? But what are some of the things that you think will resonate with people on why they haven't started, and what's one way that they can get started?
Okay. One of the greatest things that prevents us from doing something is fear. Fear is a 4-letter word, and it is one of the worst words in our vocabulary. Being afraid of failure. Hey, what if, the what ifs? What if I write this and it turns out to be nothing, or it turns out to go nowhere? What if I try this and I fail? What if, that fear of failing prevents us from beginning. That and laziness. So I got to say, there's fear and laziness. You've got to, people, we've got to remember one thing is that, do you want it? That's the question. Do you want it bad enough to do whatever it takes to get it? Is the more important question. I've got a guitar here that's been sitting, with me, and I've carried this guitar for years. I still can't play, and I picked it up. 5-10 minutes. I'm doing this. I'd love to play the guitar, but I don't think I love it that much to put in the work that it requires to do it. Now that I am home, 24/7 almost. I'm going to have to decide whether I love it that much to do it. Fear is not what's holding me back on that. I'm not afraid of not learning it. What's holding me back is whether I'm going to commit myself to doing it, to putting in the work it requires. So one of the things to get in your mind is number one, don't be afraid of failing, because the greatest successes in our world, the people who are the greatest of successes, are people who have failed more than once. But they are the people that were knocked down to the mat but got right back up, tried something different, tried a new technique, or just went back to doing what they were doing, just modified it a little bit, but they never gave up. They never gave up on their dreams. So fear can keep us. It can immobilize us to the point where we don't go for what we deserve in life. It's like, what if she says no? What if he says no? What if I don't get the job? Oh man, you know what? I'm just gonna, and there's that negative loop again. What if? Hey, if I ask her and she says no, I'm gonna feel terrible. So you know what? I may as well not just ask her, because she's gonna say no anyways. So we've already, that negative loop. That self chatter is not only is it this one experience, it's going to be the next girl, or it's going to be the next guy, or it's going to be the next job, or it's going to be this, and it becomes stronger. That wolf is getting fed. It's going to be stronger. So the things that prevent us from moving forward are fear, not wanting it bad enough, and just making putting that thought into action. It's taking action. That's one of the big things that prevent us from success, is taking action. You got to want it bad enough. You got to put your fear of failure aside, and you've got to go for what you want in this life, because nothing, or very little, is going to be handed to you.
Nothing will be handed to you. You're absolutely right. Um, I agree on the concept of failure, and I think people will look at celebrities or people that have really made it and wonder like, oh, they can't make any mistakes. They're that good. When if they actually saw them go through it, they've lived their entire life. Their entire DNA has been stumbling and getting back up and stumbling and getting back up and making a fool of themselves. And people saw that side of success, it would change their thought on failure. And another thing I took away from what you said is how badly do you want it? Like, I think a lot of times people say, to your point at the beginning, life tells me, social media tells me, the media tells me that I must be good at this in order to be worthy. And instead of looking at the things that you're really good at, you really care about, and actually just focusing on doing those things, because that's when you have that strong why that's going to get you out of bed in the morning and say, hey, this is worth me doing. So I love that. Those are two things that I'm definitely taking away from that.
Good.
There's one last question I want to ask you, Paul, and it's about a lot of things that we've talked about today. It's about language, about life being created through our language. You just touched on it now, which is, oh, she's not going to, if I ask her out, she's not going to want to go out with me. You've already created your life, and the words that you're saying, even if you're not saying them out loud, you're creating them in your mind. And another thing is, so I want us to talk about language and the value you put on language. And then the last thing I want to talk about is about life being empty and meaningless. It's something
Right.
that you mentioned in the book, and I'd love for you to expand on it for us to all take something away. So let's start with language. What is it that, what are your thoughts when it comes to the language that we use?
The language that we use determines our success. Very simple. What you say is going to manifest itself in one way or another. You know, if you say to yourself that you are not worthy, if you say to yourself that you are a loser, if you say to yourself that you'll never succeed, then your behavior is going to mimic that. For me, as a kid growing up, I was severely abused by my father physically. And I was told I would never amount to anything. When I went to school, I acted out in grade school. I was that idiot, like I was a bad boy in school. And my teachers would say, you're never going to amount to anything. This is years ago. And that's the way they spoke back then. It's like, you know what, why are you even trying? And I would always fail at tests or just pass by a margin. And because I had conditioned myself to believe the BS that was being told to me and that I was telling myself. I was conditioned to believe it. And if we believe a weakness in us, then that weakness takes over. What happened to change my world was in grade 7. I liked girls, and I was thinking about, maybe, asking somebody out, that kind of stuff. You're a normal young man. You're attracted to people, and one teacher comes up to me and he says, well, actually, he says to the whole school, he says, the whole class, he says, we've got a test, and I expect everybody in the class here to pass, except for you, Nadeau. He says, I already know you're going to fail. Now, he said that in front of my entire, class, and I felt humiliated. And I went back home, and that really resonated with me. And for the first time in my memory, I actually started looking at the material and studying the material as best I could. I wasn't good at studying because I'd never done it, but I went and I wrote that test. And after writing that test, what was customary in his class was that after he graded it, he would call the person with the lowest marks to the front of the class first. It was the walk of shame. It's almost as though he wanted to embarrass, people with low grades. He wouldn't just put it on there. No, he'd call. And I was always the first one to be called. Nadeau, 49, out of 100. And so I would get up and I'd take the walk of shame, pick up my paper, and kids would, chuckle and stuff like that. So on this occasion, he didn't call my name first. He didn't call my name second. Didn't call my name third. Didn't call my name number 10. Never called my name. Half of the class is looking at me going, hey, why aren't you up there? And I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking, I kind of knew the answers, or I really did bad and he's going to really embarrass me. And but what happened was 3 people were left to be called. Um, Two girls. One was my cousin, and the other one was a girl by the name of Giselle. Those two were Browners, and they loved to compete for the highest mark on everything. I was among them. And I thought, what's this? And the next person to be called was my cousin, Lise. She got her paper. I was the second last person to be called. And I didn't take the walk of shame. I took a proudful walk up to pick up my paper. That's the first time I felt accomplished because I had worked at something. That changed my whole way of thinking. We condition ourselves to lose. We tell ourselves, like that we're not worthy, that we possibly can't. But the moment you start saying, hey man, I can do this. I can do this because I have done this. And I want this bad enough. Nothing is going to stop me. So you project yourself into believing a new you. Start believing a new you. Create a new you. It's okay to change. It's okay to change for the better, not for the worse. It's okay to change for the better. So start creating a new you. Create the new you and call yourself author. Call yourself, like a musician. There are no overnight successes. You said that yourself, when you very beautifully pointed out that, we always think that they had the perfect life. Hey, here they are. No, they struggled. And they were defeated more than once. They failed more than once, but they kept at it. They kept at it. They kept at it. On the topic of life is empty and meaningless, this is an existential concept that, it doesn't mean that our life is empty and meaningless. It means that when we are born without any content, it's meaningless until we begin to experience things and begin to attach meaning to what happens to us, either good or bad. For example, I'll give you something. Life is never empty and meaningless. It means something, but it means what you attach to it. So
Yep.
you just meet somebody. Okay, a girl just meets a guy that she's attracted to, and she's really excited. This could end up being a relationship. So she texts him one day, and she says, "Hey, how you doing? Just thinking about you." And the guy doesn't text for 12 hours. And now she's thinking to herself, did I do something wrong? Why is he not texting me? Doesn't he like me? And guys will do the same thing. We text a girl, and if she doesn't immediately text back, we start to think, well, maybe she doesn't. What do I got to do? And we start to run these scenarios in our minds, and the bad wolf comes out and says, hey man, you're messing up, So we've attached meaning to the unanswered text. And so we get angry, and maybe we'll go out and we'll flirt with somebody else, or we'll date somebody else because we haven't heard from them in 12 hours, 24 hours. My God, 24 hours hasn't texted me back, and I am angry as heck, and all of a sudden you get a text from him or her saying, hey babe, I'm so sorry, I dropped my phone in the toilet. I had to go get a new one. I am so sorry. I've been thinking about you through this whole thing, and you go, oh God, because you attached meaning to something. Abused children will attach a meaning to their abuse, saying it was my fault. What did I do? I must have done something to be abused this way. They've attached the wrong meaning to it, when the real meaning is it's not their fault. It's not your fault. So life is empty and meaningless, until we attach significance and meaning to what happens to us. And it's up to us to attach the right meanings, and if we do make a mistake, it's okay. We're human, as long as we acknowledge it and as long as we improve. So we can attach the right meaning to what happens to us. Now, people are going to say, well, COVID-19, how could we attach a good meaning to this? We can't. You know what? It's bad. And but there's one thing we have to remember. There are 3 time zones really in our life. There's the past, the present, and the future. What happened 5 minutes ago, I can't go back and change. I can't change that. It happened. I cannot change that. What's going to happen in 5 minutes from now, I can't predict that. Who would have predicted 2 months ago that we would be on lockdown? We made all these plans. We flights and holiday plans and your social gatherings, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, none of that's going to happen. Guess what? Life happens. So the past we cannot change. The future we can plan for, but it's not guaranteed. What matters the most is this moment right now. Right now I have a great conversation going with you. We've connected. We're enriching each other's lives. We're enjoying the moment, and we choose to enjoy the moment because we have the power of choice. So live every moment with meaning, with passion, with great meaning. It's up to you how your life is going to turn out. It's COVID-19. It's bad. It happened. Okay, we got to deal with the bad cards that we were dealt with. Can't change it. Can't say, well, you know what? I'm waking up and whoa, it's not here. It is. What? It's here. So let's do the very best we can. Let's attach meaning to it. Okay, what meaning can possibly attach to COVID-19? Well, it sucks, yeah, but it gives me an opportunity for self-improvement. It gives me an opportunity to discover new talents that I may not have discovered before. It gives me an opportunity to be creative. It gives me an opportunity to remain fit, do whatever. It gives me an opportunity to live, with happiness. And when you get out of this, you're gonna be fit mentally and physically because you choose to. We have choices to make. Yeah,
I love that. I think I really thank you so much for sharing that optimistic view on this situation. I think I took away three things. One, concept of now and only now. Two is the concept of choice, and three is the concept of meaning. And now is there's only now and now and now. 5 minutes is gone. The future is essentially going to be what you do now anyway. So all there is now. That's a really, really liberating way to live. Choice is you get to choose what meaning you put towards things, and you get to choose what you decide to turn down. That definitely resonated with me with when you, for example, you observe someone says something, they may say it in a certain way, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do they mean by that? And you could spend a day or two or a week worried about what it is that they meant by it. And they probably didn't have a second thought about what you were thinking.
Yeah.
And just knowing that life is empty, meaningless, and we add meaning onto things, it really puts you, it's very motivational. It puts you in the driver's seat of, hey, I am in control of the meaning I put onto things. And as soon as you know that, as soon as you start feeling bad, you can take a second and say, hold on a second, what meaning did I add to that? And make a decision. I think life and power is all about options. It's all about feeling like you are in control of your own destiny. And just by knowing that we are the ones that add that meaning and all those things, and we are the ones that are in control of our happiness and are in control of being able to turn down the bad stuff, it just puts you in a whole different level of consciousness, I think, than other people in the world. And I hope that.
Totally agree with you. It's funny, but if you can imagine, and I'd like to make this point. I saw this once before. You have a clear glass of water. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's clear. That's how we are when we are born. There's a clear glass of water. And as we start to grow up, there are sounds. There are noises that happen. Imagine sprinkling a little bit of dirt in that, because you're afraid, you're not sure. The more we go through life, more dirt is thrown in there by, the negativity of other people. What, as you said, somebody may have said something and you begin to imagine the worst and you just add more mud or more dirt to that water. Eventually that water is not clear. And depending on how much you allow the outside world to control you, by the things that are said or done to you, depends on how much dirt you actually put in there. It may get to the point where there's so much dirt in there you can't even stir it with a spoon anymore. It's mud. And simply trying to wash it out with a little bit of water ain't gonna happen. You got to get rid of the mud that's been with you for so long and replace it with fresh water. Meaning You got to examine your life, do some self-examination, get rid of the dirt that's in there, forgive yourself when you deserve forgiveness, ask for forgiveness when, you have forgiven yourself and you would like forgiveness from someone else. Start replacing the dirt with positive, clear water. Just get the nonsense out of your head and start using that positive self monologue that we all go through. Even if you're alone and you start talking to yourself, it's all right. You're not crazy. I do it all the time. Hey, like, how you doing today? I'm doing okay. How you doing? You just really have to be your best self all the time. And if you fail and if you fall, you get back up and you say, you know what, that was kind of stupid. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I have to go into that bright closet this morning, and I want you to go into that bright closet tomorrow. You know what I'm talking about. You're going to go into that closet when you get up and you walk through that doorway. You're going to know which way to go,
Yeah.
And that is really about taking control of your life. Let's take control of our lives. We're going to get through this COVID-19. This is only temporary. How we get through it is entirely up to us. Reach out to somebody if you need to talk. I've got clients that I'm on the phone with, who need, a boost of optimism. And so, they've been with me for a while, so they'll call me and I'll give them that optimistic, view or point of view. So yeah, reach out to somebody, read something positive, fill your mind with, do some meditation, do whatever it takes to make it through this. What happened was, imagine World War I, World War II, whatever war, you're a young person and you're an able person and you're drafted into the army because your country is at war, and you're given a firearm and you're given weapons and you're told, go fight the enemy. Inside, you're 18, 19, 20 years old and you say, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. I don't want to die. I don't want to fight. This is not my war, but as a good soldier, you have a choice. You either go and fight the enemy, or you stay and cower and run away and hope that you're going to survive the bullets that are flying by you. That's war. Well, guess what? The entire world was drafted. With COVID-19, we were all given our draft papers and we were told, you're at war now. Here's your weapon. What's my weapon? It is, keeping your distance from other people and washing your hands and doing whatever you can to support your world, because that is your home. So we are soldiers and we must soldier on by doing, our part, by keeping our social distance, our physical distance. I hate the word social distance. I prefer physical distance. And by washing our hands and by supporting others. Those are the tools of each and every one of us warriors. And right now we are seeing frontline warriors every day who are serving us groceries, who are, attending, police officers who are attending to emergencies, doctors, nurses who are saving lives, who are taking care. Those are the frontline soldiers. We are soldiers as well. And our responsibility is equally important. We need to remain good soldiers and do our part in this global war against an invisible threat whose bullets are flying out there. You step outside, you can't see them, but they're there, and what we do to protect ourselves not only protects us, it protects other people we come in contact with. So we've got a huge responsibility. Let's be proud soldiers and let's just forge ahead. We're going to win this war. We're going to win this war.
There you go. Paul, how can people find your book?
Amazon, Amazon everywhere, any online bookstore. Most online bookstores across the world have it. So you're not going to get it at a bookstore right now because the bookstores are closed. But you can get the digital version or you can get the hard copy version. There's also a second edition that's come out. This one is a little smaller. It's the same book. Can you see that?
Sure can.
Okay. Yep. This is more of a paperback version to the blue one that you have. And it's available as well. Take Control of Your Life by J. Paul Nadeau. The J is for Jean, Jean-Paul Nadeau. My brother thought it was a good idea to put that on the book cover. I had never used Jean-Paul, and I just thought, okay, why not do it? So people are saying, well, is it J or is it JP? You
Yeah.
asked, is it Paul? And so, yeah, thanks. You must have heard one of my videos where I introduce myself as, hey, I'm Paul Nadeau, but
Exactly.
people call me JP, as long as, it's all good.
Amazing. You know what? So guys, everyone, please, I'm going to be putting this up on my social media. I'm going to be promoting this interview. Everyone, please pick up this book, message me about it, and we can talk about it. Thank you so much for generously offering your time to speak with me today. I really believe that. I'm really happy that you're here in the GTA. Hopefully when all this kind of cools down, it'd be great to meet with you, have a coffee. Really glad, I took a lot from this conversation. I really hope that everyone that kind of watches this will be able to implement one or two things that'll allow them to come out of this much happier, more at peace, and really transformed from the people that they walked in as. So thank you so much for your contribution, Paul.
You're very welcome. And I just want to leave you and your audience with just a couple of encouraging thoughts. You're stronger than your circumstances. We're all going to get through this, and it's up to us to take control of our lives. And thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me your time and promoting my book. And I do believe that will help a lot of people.
I appreciate that. All the best to you, my friend.
You too. Take care.
Take care, man.
All right. Bye. What time is it?